Okay, Peter, so Monday morning, the obvious thing to talk about would be to review the upcoming Canelo-Caleb Plant fight. But everybody kind of thinks that's a nailed-on fight. It's a done deal. And to be honest, I think everybody pretty much does think that, apart from Caleb Plant, which is probably what gives him his only chance. So for that reason, I don't want to go over that old ground of predicting when Canelo's going to finish that. So I thought we'd have a look at another fight, and we'll go right from one end of the scale with Canelo, topping the pound-for-pound list and looking to unify all four belts in the super middleweight division, to the other kind of strange celebrity YouTube boxing that is going on with Jake Paul v Tommy Fury, which was announced or confirmed. We'd been suspecting it for a while, and we had predicted it on this show, but yeah, it's going to come to fruition on the 18th of December in Tampa Bay, Florida, so not long to wait for that one, from the announcement to the actual fight. And I thought we'd just delve into it a little bit and pull it apart as we normally would any fight and see what are the sort of conundrums in here. It is quite interesting when you actually delve underneath it, because as I say, looking for the preconceived notions, the idea is that the YouTuber Jake Paul is now fighting a proper boxer. A proper boxer with a proper boxing pedigree, has grown up doing it all his life. Obviously brother to the outstanding world heavyweight champion Tyson Fury. So this is a no-brainer that the YouTuber is going to come unstuck and find that he can't dabble in a sport where people have been in it all their lives. So let's go from there and unpack it a little bit. I mean, first of all, looking back at that show, if anybody wants to watch this, it's going to be staged by Jake Paul Promotions in association with Showtime, and I do think that's going to be a factor in the fight that I'll come to later. But it's going to be televised pay-per-view in the UK on BT Sport. They'll come in Tampa Bay, Florida, about 8 p.m. their time, so about 1 a.m. UK time. If anybody's going to stay up to watch it. And looking at the odds, Jake Paul is 11-8, Tommy Fury is 8-15, and a draw is 9-1. I probably think the draw's a decent price there at 9-1, but obviously that puts Tommy Fury as the bookies' favourite quite strongly. So the reason for that being, I suppose, he's a boxer and he's boxing a YouTuber, and that's the sort of the common thread that people are saying about this. But like I say, let's delve into it a little bit deeper. I do think it's an impact, like I say, that it's going to be Jake Paul Promotions. Jake Paul is the one that's way ahead in this on social media, has been taunting Tommy for quite a while, has now had written into the contract that Tommy Fury has to change his name temporarily by deed poll to Tommy Fumbles if he loses this fight. And Fury has accepted that. He's constantly talking to him about his girlfriend. He's constantly talking about this, that, and the other. He's very, very quick on the uptake. I mean, this is his, he's really, what has brought him to fame. And, I think the fact that it's his promotion is going to be a little different, because you've got to remember, it's difficult to box somebody who, when it's their promotion, difficult enough to go and box a fighter when it's their promotional company or the promotional company that manages them and you're the away fighter. This is a kind of extreme example of being the away fighter. It reminds me when the Klitschko's were boxing and, they owned K2 Promotions. So you would go and box on K2 Promotions if you wanted to box one of the Klitschko brothers. And a lot of fighters said, the thing you don't realise is you go in, they treat you brilliantly, you get picked up at the airport, you get taken to the press conferences, they talk to you and they're like, is everything okay for you? Can we look after you any better? Or are your people being taken care of? And you kind of get into this boss-client relationship. And of course, then all of a sudden, they're being super, super nice to you and looking after you, and anything you want is served up by them. And then you're in the opposite corner and you've got to fight them, and you realise, you're still in that sort of boss-client relationship to a certain extent, and it's difficult to psychologically get over that. So obviously, Tommy Fury is going into this. Jake Paul has tempted him into this by saying, quite rightly, that it's by far the biggest purse that you'll ever earn. He paid him in Tommy Fury's last outing, which Jake Paul boxed as co-main event with his other fighter that he manages, the outstanding women's world featherweight champion Amanda Serrano. When Jake Paul boxed Tyron Woodley, Tommy Fury boxed on the undercard, a traditional way to sort of work your way up to fight the main event fighter. I think, I've got to stress again, it's Jake Paul's show. He's by far the main attraction. He paid Tommy Fury more than he'd ever been paid for that fight, which Fury won on points over 4 rounds. And he's paying him astronomically again, more than he could earn. And, the gist of what Jake Paul puts across is, I'm paying you. I'm giving you more money than you've ever got before, as in I'm the boss and you're not. Now, whether that will psychologically have an effect on Fury, we shall find out. But, digging down into it, obviously Tommy Fury is 22 years old. He's also dabbled in the celebrity stuff with the Love Island stuff. His first bout was in December 2018. Since then, he's had 7 starts. He's never gone past 4 rounds. He's had a few 4-round points wins. He had 1 fight scheduled for 6. I think it was his 3rd fight, but he finished it in the first round. So 7-0. And he's boxed 18 pro rounds. Now, initially that looks quite impressive, but when you dig into his opponents combined, those 7 opponents, about 175 losses and 14 wins. And 10 of those wins were with his first opponent, who had 10 wins and 102 losses. So, you know, nobody has really come, I think, you know, to beat Tommy Fury. They've all been, you know, in the opposite corner. Some of them had no wins. Some of them had, you know, astronomical losses. They've been very much in the journeyman category, and not people that he's going to learn a great deal off, other than, you know, shaking off the fears of getting in the ring in the first place. And this is a difficulty when you match these prospects a bit easy to start with, or easy, very easy, I suppose in this case. They're going to come up against someone, and he is going to come up against Jake Paul, who will come to win and who expects to win. And that's a different mindset to be fighting. You know, as well as all the physical attributes, you know, you're fighting a different mindset of somebody who thinks they can win and will win and will tell you that they're going to win. So, you know, that's the one thing about it. And also, interestingly enough, with this fight, we can say that Jake Paul is going to be Tommy Fury's toughest opponent. We can actually definitely say that, because the guy has a winning record. He's 4-0. And he will come to win, and he will come to win this fight. You know, whether he can or not is another matter. But, you know, it's quite something when you say this 7-0 pro boxer, and in a way, impeccable credentials. And this is the thing that people criticise Jake Paul about. He hasn't been fighting boxers. You know, you know, he's obviously comes from an incredible fighting pedigree with the Fury family. His elder brother is the world heavyweight champion. He's had 7 fights and 7 wins. But we're saying really he's never been tested. You know, so it's a bit. You know, he's got quite a padded record early on. So if we look at Jake Paul is 24 years old, 4-0, and those 4 wins have come against a fellow YouTuber, a basketball player. Then he fought Ben Askren, an ex UFC fighter, and then in his last fight he fought Tyrone Woodley, you know, a UFC fighter, a UFC champion. Well, you know, the last 2 were both UFC champions. So really, all those guys were on their debut. So we're talking about winning and losing records on your opponents. Well, none of those guys were boxers. But, you know, what I would say that people overlook is the last 2, particularly Tyrone Woodley, who boxed over 8 rounds and won a split decision on, they are combat athletes. You know, and these guys in the UFC, they do box as part of their training. They do spar regularly. They do, you know, pay a lot of attention to their punching. And Tyrone Woodley, I believe, came to win that fight. You know, he talked the talk and he walked the walk, and he nearly did win that fight. And, you know, a tough guy. Not, okay, you know, you're boxing a basketball player, you're boxing a YouTuber, let's forget about that. But, you know, another combat athlete who can take a shot, knows what it's like to be hit, knows what it's like to hit back, you know what I mean, and knows how to sort of adjust their engine as you go through the fight. You know, I think that's another proposition entirely. So I think that was a decent fight and a justifiable fight. You know, and Jake Paul did get past Tyrone Woodley. You know, the other thing I think there's going to be a problem for Tommy Fury in this fight is the occasion, because it's going to be massive. It's a massive pay-per-view card. He's the co-main event. There's going to be so much going on. Like I say, it's kind of Jake Paul's show. It's the Jake Paul experience, all that sort of stuff. So you've got to stay composed. You know, and don't forget, he's only 22. And he's going in on someone else's show to box the star, box the main event, who's paying him all this money. An interesting little twist to this is in his corner is going to be the heavyweight champion of the world, Tyson Fury. So Tyson is flying out to supervise his training, you know, and advise him on the fight, and then he will be in his corner on the night. And you probably couldn't get a better person in the world to advise him on how to deal with a big occasion, how to train in Las Vegas, how to not let the hype get to you, how to kind of control and influence the hype, than his big brother. So, you know, the fact that Tyson's going to be there, in a way, I think offsets what I've said earlier about the problems of this being a big occasion, the problem of the occasion getting to him and everything else. So, you know, I just think it's going to be an interesting fight. I don't think the preconceived notions on this one are right. I'm going to stick my neck out a bit, and I think Jake Paul's going to win this one. I think they know what they're doing going in. They know who they've picked. They know they've got the name, they've got the pedigree, but they don't think he's really all that as a fighter, even though he's been boxing all his life, and Jake Paul has only boxed him for the last 3 years. I think Jake Paul is in this genuinely, you know, stacked in his favour. He's got his own show. He's got the, he's got a few things going his way, and I'm going to predict a Jake Paul points win. That's just the way I think it's going to go. You know, I could be wrong, because again, these fights are difficult to predict when the guys have got so little experience to base everything on. But based on what I've seen of Tommy Fury, and based on what I've seen of Jake Paul, you know, I think 2 novices going at it, and, you know, one's 4-0, one's 7-0, good stuff. And I'm just, on this one, I'm going to go for the outsider, and I'm going to tip Jake Paul to win it. So, yeah, I'll probably be pilloried by the boxing diehards, even for just talking about this fight. But there we go. You know, and fair play to Jake Paul. I think he is started off as a bit of a sort of freak show thing. He has been boxing some combat athletes. He's now, like you say, upscaling it a bit, because all the criticisms people keep making of him, you know, you're not boxing
proper fighters, then these proper fighters are not proper boxers, etc., etc. He is stepping up and stepping up rapidly. So we shall see. So interesting week, But if you're not interested in all this celebrity froth, go for the Canelo plant thing. Although I think that's going to be a bit of a foregone conclusion. I think we're going to see a masterclass from Canelo again. Thanks, Peter. Bye.